The mind that rules over fortune works like a lantern inside a mine. It lights up seams that most people never notice in the rock. King Solomon adjusted that beam of light every dawn. He rose before the artisans opened their stalls, paced the cedar courtyard, and asked the silence where to pivot capital that day. The question still stands. Anyone who poses it with discipline detects patterns that a volatile world tries to hide. A headline about inflation only frightens those who live on a paycheck. To the strategist, it signals the moment to acquire tangible assets. Watch how wisdom filters into everyday details. A pantry stuffed with food that expires next week betrays impulse and poor calculation. Solomon stored grain in ventilated silos and oil in sealed jars. They guaranteed rations for the palace and merchandise to sell when prices rose. Today we call the equivalent a liquidity buffer and a countercyclical portfolio. With those bastions in place, any extra income becomes seed for more ambitious plantings: royalties, online rentals, seasonal partnerships. Each seed follows its own calendar. While one rests, another ripens. From that rolling timetable comes the impression that money just shows up. People repeat that time is money. Solomon believed time is better than money because it manufactures compound interest. When he lent silver to Phoenician traders, he asked for repayment in spices 6 months later, precisely when the trade routes bloomed and demand spiked. The same effort up front, a richer harvest at the end. The lesson: never swap hours for coins. Swap hours for vehicles that grow while you move on to the next venture. Scripture highlights a less quoted trait: the art of listening. Solomon welcomed kings, merchants, farmers. He mined microdata from each visitor about harbors, routes, fashions. With that knowledge, he drafted agreements before rivals knew the opportunity existed. In the digital age, listening takes another form: analytics, forums, market signals. Whoever trains the ear interprets trends while they still sound like noise. That early reading replaces the exhaustion of chasing jobs with the calm of redirecting cash flows. Justice, inseparable from lasting wealth, builds a reputation that precedes every deal. When a name opens doors without collateral, costs shrink. Solomon weighed every ingot on bronze scales set in a public courtyard. Transparency today means clear contracts, clean tax records, delivering value on schedule. Nothing mystical, just engineering trust that keeps alliances alive through decades of turmoil. One more element is intimate: the emotional bond with money. Fear of losing it vibrates at a frequency of leakage. Pride in flaunting it vibrates at a frequency of waste. The king walked through storehouses in a simple robe. That contrast reminded the court that gold is servant, not master. Practicing the same serenity demands an audit of unseen habits. The rush to buy, anxiety when checking balances, shame in charging for talent. Every emotion is a silent command that steers financial currents. Picture a week orchestrated by this logic. The first day acquires fresh information: a technical book, a call with someone who pioneers an emerging sector. The second secures fortresses: policy reviews, trademark protection. The third aims outward: partial entry into a niche fund, launch of a micro product. The fourth returns to listening, analytics, customer feedback. The fifth strengthens networks, collaboration, cross-mentorship. Saturday and Sunday invite reflection: which decisions expanded freedom and which drained energy. This isn't a rigid calendar. It's a pulse that keeps money circulating instead of stagnating in an account eroded by inflation. Within that rhythm, obstacles become upgrades. An unexpected debt teaches sharper negotiation. A sudden loss uncovers missing safeguards. A partner who pays late exposes flaws in your screening criteria. Solomon didn't curse such alerts. He engraved them on tablets and studied them like an astronomer tracks comets. Repeat the practice and every error turns into a silent mentor. All of this rests on a premise: wisdom activates the moment a person accepts that decision-making power outranks any paycheck. The Bible never condemns labor. It simply states that income isn't the lone source of provision. Employment imposes limits set by someone else. Financial intelligence smashes that frame and builds new conduits. A salary is a tightrope. Diversified cash streams form a river with many tributaries. Solomon's record endures because it relocates power from payroll calendars to the mind that observes, connects, and multiplies. Recreating that vision transforms an employee of the system into an architect of value circuits. The shift doesn't happen by decree, it seeps in drop by drop, choice by choice, until dependence quietly vanishes the way crutches vanish once a bone heals solid. The current of wealth that flows from that point seeks no applause. It simply circulates, funds projects, sustains causes, nourishes generations. Ancient scribes called it glory, modern finance calls it sovereignty. Whoever claims it never asks where to find a job, he asks which opportunity deserves his capacity for stewardship today. That question opens gates forever closed to those still waiting for someone else to draw the map. In Solomon's day, Jerusalem sat on the hinge of 3 continents. Caravans from the incense valleys of Sheba, cedar rafts floated down from Lebanon, and bronze ingots crossed the Red Sea from Ophir. The king treated that geography like a chessboard. Every border became a toll gate, every port a marketplace, every wilderness track an information pipeline. When foreign envoys arrived, he didn't merely trade goods, he traded asymmetries of knowledge. A prince from Cush might crave cedar, a Phoenician captain craved grain insurance. Solomon noted the gap and filled it, sometimes with a physical shipment, sometimes with a diplomatic guarantee priced as a percentage of the risk he removed. That margin, repeated across dozens of corridors, matured into a revenue lattice far sturdier than tribute or taxes. Translating the model to a digital century means scanning for friction, currency controls, logistics bottlenecks, linguistic barriers, data silos, and inserting a service where the old system leaks value. The reward is the spread between difficulty and solution. A language-agnostic software layer, a payment rail that bypasses conventional banking hours, a niche education platform that turns expert protocols into global microcourses. Each mirrors the ancient toll house erected on a dusty road. Notice another tactic. Solomon rarely liquidated prime assets to cover palace expenses. He issued debentures backed by his gold reserves, then deployed the cash into ventures returning more than the coupon rate. In effect, he let other kingdoms finance his expansion while his bullion stayed untouched. Modern equivalents are credit lines secured by appreciating collateral, real estate in emerging zones, royalties from intellectual property, and redeployed into high-yield but risk-buffered vehicles. The principle is leverage disciplined by cash flow projections, not speculation fueled by ego. Critics claim fortune is hoarded luck. Investigation shows the opposite. Solomon's archives describe periodic jubilee resets, when debts forgiven and land rotated prevented systemic collapse. The modern rendering is strategic philanthropy. Redirect a slice of excess returns into health, water, code libraries, scholarships. Such redistribution isn't charity camouflage. It seeds future consumers, innovators, and allies. The economy that feeds you survives because you feed it, an insight more durable than hoarding bullion behind stone. A detail often missed. The king kept scribes tracking inventory and climate patterns with obsessive rigor. Yields of wheat, rainfall cycles, caravan speeds, data scribbled on clay shards. Over decades, those shards formed predictive baselines. If Nile floods failed 2 years in a row, barley exports to Egypt would spike. Incense prices rose whenever monsoon winds delayed Arabian dows. Data became foresight, foresight became timely allocation, allocation became compounded surplus. Replace clay tablets with dashboards and algorithms, yet remember the heart of the process. Numbers are prophecies for those who read them daily instead of occasionally. Wealth, in Solomon's ledger, was never a static pile. It pulsed like a living artery. Gold entered the treasury, funded copper mines in Easy and Geber, exited as smelted tools, re-entered as customs tariffs, and spiraled outward again as temple renovations that magnetized pilgrim commerce. Cash idling in a vault was considered a sign of negligence, proof the steward lacked imagination. If a surplus could not be reinvested within the kingdom, emissaries were dispatched to study foreign innovations worth importing. Irrigation wheels from Mesopotamia, lyre designs from Cyprus, dye techniques from Sidon. The empire's prosperity, then functioned as a continuous feedback loop, converting external ingenuity into domestic growth. The psychological underpinning mattered just as much. Royal chronicles note that Solomon convened evening councils where merchants debated supply shocks without fear of punishment. By welcoming dissent, he mined collective cognition instead of flattering his own intuition. Replicating that atmosphere means forming inner circles where partners are paid, in equity or royalties, to expose flaws in your strategy before the market exposes them at full price. All these threads converge on a single thesis. The person who replaces labor for wage with wisdom for yield graduates from survival math to sovereignty calculus. A job is a faucet controlled by someone else. An ecosystem of assets is rainfall captured in reservoirs you designed. When storms come, reservoirs fill. When droughts linger, evaporation still leaves enough moisture to irrigate. Solomon didn't pray for predictable weather. He engineered reservoirs. Listen deeper than tides of opinion, map friction lines, convert insight into multi-stream flows, circulate gains into the commons, harvest data until patterns speak, and fortify your mind against the vanity that unravels empires. Do that consistently and income ceases to be an external ration. It becomes an echo of the architecture you've built within.